to my channel. I am so glad that you're here. And if you're new to the channel, hi, my name is April and I enjoy sharing content in the arena of motivation, inspiration, and mentorship. And I'm so glad that you are here for today's video, as I am so excited to be bringing to you one of the most important series that I find on Motivation Suite podcast, communication series. And yes, so I just thought it would be really nice to take a little gander of the exploration of all things communication, because at the end of the day, communication truly is the cornerstone of all actions, therefore after. So I'm just so excited you are here. And in this series, we're going to be covering a lot of areas in the area of communication, whether it comes down from nonverbal to verbal cues, tone, listening, hearing, all of those wonderful things that make the world go round when it comes to communication. And I just hope that you will enjoy this series here as well. So, as I always say, make sure that you sit back and get a glass of whatever you like. And I hope that you enjoy this first part in the communication series, Civility. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Motivation Suite. I am your host, April Rogers, and I am truly excited that you are tuning in today. Remember, this is your place for all things motivation, inspiration, and mentorship. And before I get started, I want to take a few moments to pretty much share with all of you that I wish all of you well. My heart and my thoughts and prayers are with everyone during this very difficult time. It has been really, just in a nutshell, just unreal what we have had to experience over these last couple of months now globally. So I just hope that all of you are staying safe. And again, my thoughts are just with everyone during this time. I also wanted to take a moment to thank all of the medical staff and custodians and first responders, military, caring leaders, neighbors, teachers, caregivers, and all of those who have found such creative ways to bring sense of normalcy and calm to all the anxieties that a lot of us are feeling during this time, and giving us an avenue of escapism, even if it's just for a few moments. And I just feel that that is just so much of a blessing, and I know truly, personally, I'm just so very grateful to it for myself. So I do hope that everybody is doing well. I hope that you can sit back for a few minutes and just listen into another episode here with me at Motivation Suite, because I am truly grateful and thankful that you are tuning in today. Now, I know it's been a little bit of time since we've uploaded an episode of Motivation Suite, so I do hope that you've had an opportunity to take a look at all of the plethora of other episodes that I have in the library, with a lot of great information in there to help to uplift and motivate and inspire you. So please, if you haven't had an opportunity to take a look at the library of episodes within the Motivation Suite podcast, I really do hope you take some time to do so. And, let me know what you're thinking and how, if you find this to be helpful, and maybe some of the ways that it is helpful. Just really would love to know and hear all about that from you as well. So with that, let's go ahead and get right on into today's episode. Now, as you may recall, our last episode, we had covered the topic area of New Year's resolutions, and which I shared some tips that I like to follow when I'm considering and deciding on what type of resolutions or goals that I may have within the current year. And of course, 2020 has been such an upside down year. There has been some elements of those tips that I have really taken to great heart. If you may recall in that episode, some of the tips that I shared were determining those items that I felt were important, realistic, and achievable. Resolutions that move me forward in a meaningful way. Choosing resolutions that challenge me for professional and personal growth. and remembering to have, some fun with those resolutions, and ensuring that I included resolutions that promoted self-care by taking time for stress relief activities such as exercising, meditation, and taking dedicated mental health days as well. I felt all of those particular tips were extremely important and helping me to move through a lot of the taskers that I had set forth for myself, in particular for this year. So I really felt that some of the tips that I've shared have just been ones that I've really held on to as we've been going through what we currently are going through during this pandemic. Also knowing that I have to find ways to progress and promote those goals that I needed to accomplish. So I found those tips to be very helpful when trying to decide what type of outlook I had for 2020 and what I wanted to see myself, where I wanted to see myself at the end of the year with all the goals that I had set aside for myself. So I'm hoping that you're able to, if you have not already, taken a listen to that actual podcast. And I know with things being so erratic right now, and one of the things that really has just been ripped out of the playbook is really our plans for 2020, right? I mean, honestly, there has been so much going on and so much adjustment to our lives and in so many areas that we've had to really take stock of things and really be in that mode of, in some cases, more reactive than even an opportunity to even be proactive. So, I say these tips and I share these tips in the mode of not putting so much pressure on myself and most certainly would not want others to feel to put pressure on themselves as well. Because one of the important things when you setting out what you want to accomplish or the type of goals that you have in mind, you want to remain flexible, right? You want to be able to know that sometimes things may not work out exactly the way you want them, and you want to be able to pivot during those times. So again, if you haven't had an opportunity to take a listen to that episode, I hope that you do. And even within the times that we're dealing with right now, I hope that it does give some thoughts of when you want to start getting back on track with certain things that you may not have been able to because of literally what's going on, that would be a helpful guide to return to when it is right for you. So with that, in today's episode, I am happy to share that today we are going to be starting our 5-part communication series. Communication is truly a heartbeat of our relationships and can be both effortless and complicated to navigate. And with all the things that are going on right now, I find this to be so prevalent in this time. We are spending a lot of time with our loved ones, maybe more than what we were spending during times where they're a lot calmer and we had more of a routine. Now we have individuals who are teaching their kids at home and working from home and exercising from home and playing from home, and everything is from home. And you may be spending an enormous amount of time with your loved ones, and having to get readjusted into that can be difficult for some, and for some it's not a problem. So I hope that there is some benefit and helpfulness within this series. This is something I'm very passionate about. I love things in the arena of communication because I've always feel that we should always be striving for ways to relate to one another and be kind to one another and understand one another, because we all are in this thing called life, and we need to be able to work together and thrive together and strive together. So communication is just something that I find to be very important, and obviously it's necessary, right? Whether you have good communication or bad communication, the bottom line is communication exists, and we should all work towards in our best of ways to communicate in ways that are productive and helpful and relatable even, so we can all move through life as least as complicated as possible when we can. So within this 5-part communication series, we'll be covering a few areas that I found are foundational navigational elements of communication. So therefore, those 5 areas will be civility, active listening, tone, verbal and nonverbal cues, interpersonal, and love language. As you may have guessed, I am pretty excited about this series, and I hope that you will find it to be, again, helpful and motivating and inspiring for you as well. So with that, let's go ahead and dive right into today's session, which is part 1, civility. There are several aspects of civility, which range from many areas such as civility in the workplace, civility in business, civility in sociology, civility in world history, and civility in politics, as well as civility in government, and believe it or not, an area of civility in nursing. So you can see the concept of civility is heavily used in all dimensions of the human experience. And civility is simply identified as the behavior of being friendly and nice to everyone. Just that, simple as that. Civility in its root cause is just being civil to one another. And I cannot imagine any greater time in which this is so prevalent. And even if we were not going through what we were going through right now, this would still be prevalent in our everyday life. So when one is showing civility, they are using kindness and good manners and or formal politeness, in which you may see in special occasion events such as stately dinners, conferences, weddings, ceremonies, etc. And you can also just take the civility element and make it more closer to home, where it's just a simple hello to someone that you see out and about, a simple how are you doing, a simple smile, that type of human connection and being civil with one another, and way of that, I see you, right? A way of saying I see you and I value you, right? I value you as a human being. That's it. Just being civil, just being kind, just being cognizant of your words and how you relate to one another in very short order and in formal orders. Now, we're reviewing the concept of civility. It's very easy to see that this should be the way that we all should act when interacting with one another. Showing civility or being civil is really a basic tentacle to positive communication. Now, when you are respectful to one another, the ability to understand one another's viewpoint becomes easy to accomplish. You see, the troubling thing about the act of civility is, unfortunately, there are way too many times in which civil behavior is set aside for one's desire of lashing out and tuning out the other's feelings and or concerns. Now, in situations where we see that so very often, and maybe sometimes, unfortunately, engage in that ourselves, when you think of it at the root, that even when you choose to lash out in a moment, it doesn't change the element or concerns of what is going on, right? So you can choose to ignore someone, you can choose to, and now of course I'm talking about this in perspective with someone that you are having an issue with, that you want to try to come to resolve. So keeping that in perspective and in that context, if we storm off or just pretty much negate from listening to whatever that point of view is because we feel that we're so right, you're missing out on an opportunity naturally on coming to some resolution. And again, whether you lash out or take a moment, take a step back and breathe and just take that time to listen, either way the concern is there. So isn't it just much easier to give that person the opportunity to speak and for you to also have that opportunity as well? Just food for thought there. Now, as one thing that has taken a hit at times is that the shared ability of calm communication, right? You see, we live in such a fast-paced world, which has now been slowed down due to what's going on. But in most essence, and when we're not in the full-fledged pandemic, this is the type of world we have been living in. And it promotes this instant gratification of being what is the key and somewhat a requirement for us, instead of understanding sometimes things need to take time and rush is not always the best way to move forward in any type of element. And so therefore the downside to this is that it challenges our patience, right? It makes us irritable, agitated, less inclined, and none of those things are positive ways of communicating, right? None of those things are going to help you really to get to your goal. And if they do, I would bet on the fact that you'll probably only get there in short order and not really the way you need it to. And then the other person is not getting what they need. And really, at the end of the day, is that really a win? You know, you decide. Now, sometimes our fuses become so short that we don't take the time to communicate effectively because we may already be on the next situation to address. Like, if you ever had a conversation with someone, and I'm pretty sure you have, right? But take a moment to think about where you're talking to someone, you're sharing something, and it could be of an uncomfortable topic or of an issue, and you kind of look at them and you don't really know if they're really paying attention to you, that they just seem like they're kind of, their head is turning, their brains are turning, and they're looking forward when they can kind of interject what they have to say without even listening to anything that you're talking about, right? So when our fuses become short, we're just simply not engaged, and that causes more unrest than is necessary. Instead of being able to just take a moment, take a breath, step back, and really focus on what is being said. You know, now it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that setting aside civility is most often problematic, right? When we lose all navigational skills and being productive and our communication. Now, I didn't always say that the communication has to be positive, because sometimes, obviously, when you have issues or concerns, it may not be of a positive nature, but you can use positivity and walk in a positive format in achieving resolution. Even if it means that you need to set aside the situation to come back and talk and discuss later on. That is still a more positive way than a detrimental communication that maybe stops you from talking to that individual. And then time is lost and time is wasted. And at that point, where are you at then? The issue still exists. It's still there. It's not changed. You know, so things that are very important to understand with civility is that it may not always be the easiest thing to do, but it is the thing you should do. Right? I'll just go out there and say it. It's the way that we should be. Always. Right? You know, we mustn't forget that we all have things that we may be going through. Right? Challenges that we must have to face. And when someone shows you just a bit of kindness, it can most certainly brighten up that person's day. Or at very least, I should say, give them a needed pick-me-up. Right? You never know what anyone is going through. And just taking that moment in time to set aside just a smile, a hello, or just even speaking to the individual like they're a human being, right? You never know how beneficial and how needed that can be. I always say that, you never know what people are going through. So to be kind and showing some kindness you can never go wrong with that. Because being kind to one another doesn't cost a thing. But yet it offers up so much promise and positivity for that individual, whether you know it or not. It shows that you care about your fellow person and truly makes the world a better place. Hands down. One could say that the showing of civility can make the world go around. Others may say money, but I'll say civility. As in times when things seem a little colder and hostility has taken over, infusing the act of kindness and good manners can go a long way to warming up those relationships and quelling the nasty, in which really doesn't get you anywhere more, but to just more nasty. You see, the use of civility helps to keep yourself in check and not jumping to the wrong conclusions about whatever may be happening. Civility is a great proponent in the establishment of emotional intelligence in your personal and professional life. You'll find that the act of civility brings more calm to a disagreement, allowing for making a way of conflict resolution. And if you see that the interactions with us are more positive than negative, you will undoubtedly feel more inner peace and stability as well. Therefore, with a working understanding of the power of continuous civility, You can see how this tentacle of communication is imperative to be effective element and pursuant of transmission of expression and thoughts, feelings, and concerns. Being civil is a thoughtful act in which all benefit. Well, everyone, that concludes today's session. And I hope that you have found today's topic meaningful and helpful in understanding the full benefits of active civility in the realm of effective communication. And of course, I am so appreciative of you tuning in on today's episode, and I look forward to you tuning in for our next episode for part 2 of our communication series, Active Listening. Also, I would love your thoughts on this particular episode in regards to civility. So please feel free to leave a comment, and if you are finding the content to be helpful, feel free to like, follow, share, and join the Motivation Suite community. Also, Motivation Suite podcast can be found on Apple iTunes and or your favorite podcast listening platform. And don't forget, you can also join the community by joining the Motivation Suite community group on Facebook and follow us on Instagram at Motivate Inspire Mentor, as well as on Twitter at Sweet Motivation, and that's SUITE. Thank you again for listening, and I look forward to you tuning into the next episode for our next installment of this journey. Please be safe, and until then, take care.